Creating from the Heart, the Artistry of Living. I'm Suzy Vance, and I am here with John today. How are you, John?
I'm glad to be seen. Glad to be seen.
There we go. He is a sculptor of the first order, and so we're going to hear from you today. How you and I have just finished walking around your garden, which is very large and filled with all kinds of things you planted that inspire you, and all kinds of things that you created to go with that.
Yeah, I think the gardens and everything that I've composed, or my wife and I have composed over the years, is not only is a starting point for thinking about my artwork, but it's at the same time it's also something that doesn't naturally look like my artwork. I'm not making flowers, if
No.
put it short. You've seen the work I do.
I have.
But I'm, for all its beauty and everything, there's also some underlying edginess to it. You see the wasps, attacking another insect, or you see a bird nipping a monarch and taking off,
You see life.
You see life. You see the beginning and end of a civilization in the the heart of a tulip. I mean, who knows? But it's. I don't want to make too much of it, but I think the yard turns out to be something that is a physical rendering of what I do otherwise, in terms of using a pen or using a chisel or something that's really slow going. And at the same time, everything out there is like a physical health program where I'm cutting grasses and
moving around, muscles.
And you're also composing the tree a little bit without taking over its nature. I want to incorporate that feeling of a compositional, musical, theatrical thing going on. I think my wife has a little of that too. This flower has to compose itself with those colors and that arrangement and so on. We get into some conflicts a lot on that. So for all the bucolic happiness, there's always a little conflict involved too, Hey, that's life, right?
Yes, and you have to.
And that's art.
Yeah,
that's art too.
It's creativity.
Yeah. So what else you want to know?
Oh, so I want to know, did you think you were going to get into this when you were a kid? Where'd you grow up?
The background is sort of interesting to me anyway, after I've been reflecting on this now, after all these years. I was born in Germany. My father was Polish, my mother was German. He ended up surviving the war from Poland, met my mother in Germany. They had me, we came over to the States. So I had this connection with that culture.
How old were you?
I was only 5, but I went back when I was 8. I stayed a year there and went to school. 12, 16, 21, I hitchhiked around Europe for 3 months.
Oh, that'll
went to
wake
Poland
up.
when I was 21. So I had the upbringing that was American, at the same time German and Polish too. So a lot of my friends don't know that part of me, or can understand what that means, because when you grow up in an ethnic background, especially in the 50s, it was, you do it this way, and that's it, that's it. It wasn't too libertarian like it is now. So I wasn't planning on doing artwork. I went through school and so on. I ended up getting an English and German lit degree. I was going to teach. I taught a precursory study at Purdue, for 1 year, and I knew that wasn't for me.
Good for you.
Yeah, good for me. So I did the next important thing. I became a roofer. Yeah, that was a natural outcrop. But then subsequently, through affiliations in Valparaiso, I was managing the Pine Ski area for 10 years.
I remember that.
Yeah. Well, at the time, it was okay. You know, I mean, it met my needs. But then I got married. We had kids. I had to get serious. I got into a job, and eventually I became a trim carpenter, which was I started off as, on a low basis, and then I ended up becoming that, and I made my living at that. Now, having said that, when I was about 21, I had taken an elective. I took one art class at IU, but it was just to finish school, and I kept doing it. I mean, I was doodling prior to this as a child, but nothing serious. But then I got into it, and then my first painting I did, I won the Best of Show in Hammond, which was the big Minus Furniture family show, And I did the 6 foot by 4 foot painting of a girl that I knew, and it was in black and whites, and I won Best of Show. And when they asked me, well, what are you going to do with the money? I said, buy more paintbrushes, right? Well, not only did I do that, but in my travels, I saw a lot of sculpture, and I really became enamored with it. So I started doing some sculptural little pieces out of driftwood when I was living in Miller.
This is like just going down the beach, finding the right
That's
piece.
That's it. I still have one of my first pieces downstairs called Mother and Child. And it's an organic kind of look. And you can tell it's a mother and you can tell it's a child. But I mean, it was a neat little composition. But it went from there. And then...
and you couldn't get enough of it, I'm guessing.
No, but I also was enamored with the hippie lifestyle, and I thought it was cool because I had this ability to manifest itself in some kind of physical object that expressed myself, I think at that time I was just trying to meet a lot of chicks, and can I do your drawing for you, a drawing of you for you? But after getting that out of my system, I got married and had kids, and then I still had to make some money, and I got the job, but I always said it was way too confusing and hard to try to do the artwork for a career. I knew I didn't want to do that. That was just not in my nature. But I did have a compulsion to create objects.
There you go.
And I just kept with it, and it was always on the side. So between working and taking care of estates and family and everything, I always had a shop, and even if I worked in the basement, which I did a lot of times. And then one thing led to another, and I just kept doing. And 50 years later, I'm here in a new location that has sustained that energy that I've wanted to put into the work that I do. And I've never really had to do anything in a repetitive way, because a lot of times you find yourself in that position if you're going to make a business out of something,
Right.
That didn't appeal to me very much.
Good.
So that was the chapter that should end on my life. That's way too much information. But,
But it's important because it shows
it is important
how you move from one thing to another, but you hung on to yourself all along.
Yeah, it's like you're skidding on ice, and it overlooks all the little nuances of things that push you in that direction. I mean, everybody has life motivating moments and shattering moments, and I don't want to, like I told you before, make a therapy session out of this. But I mean, I'm no different than anybody else, is what it amounts to, except that I had this capacity to come up with the art talent that people accuse me of,
Well, if I may, what I would say is that through it all, there's a thread that runs where you're true to yourself.
I hope so,
And you
because
can tolerate all the on this side and on that side, but you hold on to this.
I think, if I understand that right, it's something that is one of the things I've always kept in mind was, my education in art was everything that I saw in my travels.
Yes.
Everything I could see in a museum, everything I could read in art books, and the few special people I've met in my life, which have been very few that were as adamant about their approach towards art. And the whole thing amounts to the fact that I didn't want to identify. I mean, we all take objects from other people, maybe some unbeknownst to us, and try to use that as a jumping point to try to express our own thing. Maybe we change it a little bit, but then that becomes like a little act of cleverness. And I never wanted to be clever. I wanted to create something that ultimately, when you walked in and you saw the piece, said, yeah, that looks like Habela's piece, And again, it wasn't necessarily something that where they pat you on the back for it. It was because in my own mind, I wanted to know who Habela was,
There you go.
So
You're curious.
I'm pretty happy with the trajectory that I've gone through to do this. Now, one of the things that confuses people about my work is because that I have a tendency to do graphic work, metal work, wood carving, I don't know. These, I carve antlers, for that matter. But the point being that I could never just sustain myself with one particular avenue of exploration. There are just too many wonderful things out there to express. And each thing that I do now may look a little bit like the previous one, but I think eventually you have to pick one and stick with it because, it really does morph into who you are. Mm-hmm. And at this stage of the game, I'm pretty close to, I better find out who I am because we're run out of time, right? So.
If white hair means anything.
Yeah, I've been successful to a certain extent at selling some of my work over the years, enough to sustain it and pay for my outpourings, That should be enough success story for me. I'll never be rich and famous from it, but at the same time, I've also known that I've never had that pressure to just try to please other people with my work. It's pleasing me
work.
Totally.
Yeah,
and
work.
I'm not forcing it on anybody, but I always seem to have a pretty good positive response from most people, and the ones who want to take the time to actually consider what the work is. And like you saw in my shops, it's a little overwhelming at this point.
So, some people in life are struggling with, I've finished high school, should I go to college? Is college really important? And if I don't go to college, what am I going to do? Or maybe they did a whole bunch of stuff, they're working for somebody, and all of a sudden, there are a lot of people like that now who just lose their jobs. Do you have any advice for them about, in a sense, how to find themselves?
Well, no, I don't. I have kids. I worry about how they're going to sustain themselves, when they get my age. They've had a little bit different direction and maybe had a little more of a leg up, maybe not, I don't know. But when I think of my life, it was just so busy that I didn't really have a lot of time to think in terms of making plans ahead of time and so on. If I hadn't been married, I married one time, and then I married again, and the second time I had somebody that made all the plans for me. She left, she took out a lot of all the worries in terms of planning. I'm really good at building a house, or doing landscaping, or making a sculpture, making furniture, but when it comes to the finances and things like that, it's your typical artist mentality, left brain, right brain,
I got it.
I don't take pride in that, but I've learned more to be having my feet on the ground. It's not like I ever wanted to accept the fact that I wanted to be a starving artist. That's a ridiculous thing. That's to me, that was always a little undignified, way of thinking about life. I've been around too many people that worked hard in their life, and that's the only way I knew it. Now, I don't know what's going on these days, but it looks a little different to me, and not too many people want to work with their hands, and do things like that.
Interesting.
And so, where does it go from here? What kind of advice? I think you keep walking, you keep moving. Try to incorporate your soul into all the things you do, and you have to decide what your soul is all about. And if you don't, you reach a certain point in life and you'll just kind of disappear and into yourself, or you'll just keep moving and creating things that hopefully move others or yourself.
I mean, you have no idea where the next eye is coming from, the next idea.
No, you don't. You don't. And I hope that I hesitate using the word religion, but when I was a child, I grew up started off in Catholic religion. I've been affiliated or participated in a variety of religious organizations and so on, and to the point where I was trying to glean whatever I could from the positive nature of it, and yet there's a lot of negative things about it too. And all I know is that the word God and the word art have 3 letters in it, and I chose to go with the art, but not divorce it from its intrinsic connection to some kind of a higher spiritual calling,
What I like to think of as God is good, orderly direction.
That's a good way to participate in that. Yep.
And it's up to us to find that groove.
Yeah, but everybody has their own groove.
Yes.
Yeah, and some people want to be led, and other people want to just kind of figure it out for themselves. Right. So you can't just pinpoint it or point the finger or say this is right or that's wrong. If there's anything I learned about doing artwork was that I don't know where any of these images emanated from. They weren't there for me. I'll sit around and I'll just start putting some lines on a piece of paper, and that's obviously something magical happens.
Or chipping away at a piece of wood.
You've got to start cutting into something to have it start helping you direct the motion, the
Tell
action.
you who it is.
Yeah, and
right.
then it's like writing a novel. You take all these disparate parts that are bothering you or making you happy or whatever, and then putting them together and realizing that nothing ever is touches. If you give too much information, then the work doesn't breathe and it becomes boring. Then you might as well just go to Hobby Lobby. But if you just have that thing where that painting that Michelangelo did where the God and Adam are just barely touched, it should never touch. And that's exactly what's going on there, You should never, there are different value scales of the art world. You can be a political statement, or you can have some kind of sentimental statement or what. I don't like to jail myself that way. I mean, I don't like to have these constrictions around me that give you all the information you need so that you don't have any responsibility for making a decision yourself. And that makes the piece that much more exciting. It becomes energized, even though it might be a real stabilized kind of static material sitting right in front of you. But when you look at it, everything's going this way and that way, and then it all comes together, and then you have the piece that,
boom.
It's a body, but what kind of, and then it's this, and it's what a friend of mine used to call, what he say, he used to call it the what about and the where about. He was an abstract expressionist, and despite the fact that I didn't do anything that looked like his work, or he didn't do anything that looked like mine, we were still on the same level of understanding what that meant. I miss that, missing that kind of talking to people that do things like that in a way that you're talking about things that you can't talk about.
Yeah.
And yet you still understand it. Where's this coming from? Where's that guy behind the curtain?
Thank you so much for sharing.
I don't know what I shared exactly, but
I had a wonderful conversation. Let's just leave it at that.
I appreciate that, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome. Yeah. Creating from the heart, the artistry of living, John Habela.
Habela.
Yeah. We'll see you next time.
Bye.